Chapter 8. Assessment. Night falls late in the Antarctic summer, and when it comes, it looks more like twilight than true darkness. Twilight dimmed the sky as Tarosh called a general meeting in the Deep Core Station commissary, which had now become a triage center for victims of the Tyrannosaurus rampage. Wounded men lay moaning or screaming beneath thermal blankets, stained dark red with blood, their injuries too severe to be treated with the limited medical supplies and personnel at hand. Men suffering from shock and exposure hunched over bowls of cold soup, staring into space and jumping every time they heard a loud or unusual sound. Around a long dining table sat what remained of Tarosh's senior staff, along with Troy, Kelly, Mike McKelvey, who had survived with a broken arm set in a sling, and Jack Rains, who looked bruised and battered, but alive. Horse Zalman sat between the two of Tarosh's senior staff members, Vladimir Belin and Dmitry Proskov, each man in his quiet way, looking far more dangerous than Zalman. As for Zalman, the side of his face had been scraped raw by metal debris from when the Tyrannosaur had shattered the front wall of the storage depot, and he could barely conceal his contempt whenever he looked at Kelly. "Why isn't someone taking care of these wounded men?" she asked Tarosh, pointing to the bodies beneath the blankets. "We lost Dave Richter, our camp doctor," Tarosh said, "when the creature destroyed the corridor." "You sure he's dead and not just missing?" "Quite sure. No one get out of that corridor alive. But feel free to check yourself, Miss Sawyer." Kelly bristled. "Listen, Tarosh, what happened out there wasn't my fault." "It was no one's fault. Merely a series of unexpected and unfortunate developments." "Unexpected? If you had listened to me, that egg would be back on its way to the U.S. by now, where it could have hatched under normal circumstances without the use of radioactive waste to speed up its growth process. And the only dinosaur born on this planet in the last 65 million years wouldn't be out in sub-zero temperatures right now, probably freezing to death." "You smug bitch." The hatred in Zalman's voice made the other men at the table look up. Troy leaned forward. "Listen, Zalman." "Shut up," he snapped. Then he turned back to Kelly. "Your pet lizard killed a friend of mine. Burned alive when the copter went down. I'm sorry that egg was ever found. If I knew then what I know now, I would have made sure that somebody shoved it right up your..." Troy threw hot coffee into Zalman's face. Zalman screamed, "Eee!" as scalding liquid burned his scraped skin. He jumped to his feet, drawing his Makarov in the same movement, and stood there, hot coffee dripping from his face, the automatic pointed at Troy's chest. "Horst," Tarosh said quietly, "put it away." Zalman remained standing, the Makarov resting on Troy. "Horst, don't make me repeat myself. You saw what in a time of crisis, it would be nice to think that we could all get along without fighting amongst ourselves. Troy, another childish action like this, and I will be forced to shoot you. Horst, sit down." Zalman put the gun away and sat slowly, eyes on Troy. "I know you were good friends with Eric, Horst. We're sorry he went down with the Sikorsky, but Miss Sawyer had nothing to do with that. This is not the time for parceling out blame. What we need is damage assessment. Billy?" Billy Ballard, a former administrative assistant who had been moved up fast because of the deaths of Kosnan and others, took out a sheet of paper and put it in front of them. We lost everything when the copter hit the communication center. Transmitters, receivers. The only radios we have left are 4 walkie-talkies people were carrying with them. Now that the copter's gone, we have no means of local transportation except for dog sleds and 2 17-foot motor launches. That C-130 would have come in handy, McKelvey said. Ballard nodded, especially in the radio equipment being on board. But that's history too. We have adequate food supplies for the next 2 weeks, although restocking is going to be a real problem. Medical supplies are even worse. We had enough for normal medical emergencies. After a major disaster like this, how long the supplies will hold out now is anyone's guess. Mine would be less than 1 week. Generators are functioning, aren't they? McKelvey asked. So far, Ballard knocked on the wooden tabletop. What about fuel to keep them running? Well, that part's not so rosy. We were planning to send the copter over to King George to restock our fuel supply. So how much we got now, Billy? Depends on how much we use. Maybe a week? Maybe less? McKelvey sighed. Great. About those motorboats, Kelly began. The launches? Ballard asked. Yeah, could we use them to get over to King George? Not in this weather, Ballard said. The launches are used for coastal navigation only. You wouldn't want to sail one across the Bransfield Strait. Not unless it was a matter of life and death. Kelly's mouth dropped. What do you think we're talking about? You say we have less than 2 weeks' supply of food, 1 week's worth of medicine, less than that for an electric generators. If we just sit here, we'll freeze to death or starve, whichever comes first. You exaggerate, Miss Sawyer, Tarosh said. By practicing strict conservation, we can easily double the amount of our existing supplies. Long before we exhaust those, somebody will have to come over from another base to check on us. How do you know? Because before today, Deep Core Station had been sending out radio transmissions on a daily basis. Someone will notice that the transmissions have stopped. That doesn't mean they'll do anything about it, Troy said. Most likely, they'll assume we had some kind of transmission trouble from the storm. They might come over to check us out after a really long silence, maybe by next spring. No one challenged him on this statement because everyone sitting at the table knew it was true. We're beginning to take an unduly pessimistic view of our situation, Tarosh said. The picture's not that bleak. The camp has remained intact, more or less. We have sufficient supplies if we're careful. And here, Tarosh paused, took a sip of coffee, put the cup down. The most valuable scientific discovery of all time is wandering loose out there, as Miss Sawyer said. We don't have the luxury to sit here and worry about our own troubles. We have to plan instead on how we're going to get him back. Troy raised his eyebrows. You're kidding, right? Not at all. I'm entirely serious. Oh, then you must be out of your head. In what sense, Troy? Sure, we survived the first attack, barely, except a lot of us didn't. And that was starting out with him in a cage inside a storage depot with a helicopter, nets, and a tranquilizer gun on our side. Now you're talking about going after him out in the open at night, unarmed, with the element of surprise on his side, not to mention his speed and strength. And size, Jack added. Don't forget that. Tarosh nodded, as if considering these things. It's true we've encountered difficulties in our first confrontation, but we also learned something valuable. What? Troy asked. How to run for our lives? We learned that there is no safety in numbers. The large group of personnel inside the storage depot merely made things easier for the creature. Personnel. Troy repeated the word. You make them sound like statistics instead of men. We also learned, Tarosh continued, that large-scale equipment is no guarantee of success. One man with a tranquilizer gun, Gregor Koznan, came closer to subduing the beast than a Sikorsky helicopter with a steel net. Closer? Kaznan hit him dead on with the tranquilizer dart. You could see it sticking out of his damn hide, but a lot of good that did, Kaznov or the rest of us. Another dart, Tyrosh said, would have finished the job. You're overlooking something, Kelly said. Just because tranquilizer darts work with elephants and grizzly bears, you think they'll work with a tyrannosaur? If you up the dosage enough, but there's a problem. Until now, we've never known what dinosaur skin was actually like. Paleontologists have made guesses based on fossil remains, but you can't tell much about skin from a set of bones. Now we know from this T-Rex that dinosaur hide is tough and similar to crocodile skin, but much harder to penetrate. It also almost certainly has insulating properties to conserve heat in a warm-blooded animal, something a crocodile doesn't have to worry about. I don't think it was an accident that Kaznan's dart didn't have any effect. It wouldn't have mattered if he shot another 1 or 10 or more. You're speculating, Miss Sawyer, Tyrosh said. I am not! I examined his skin carefully when he was a hatchling. I know what I'm talking about, Tyrosh. The 460 rifles didn't have any effect either, Troy said. Exactly, Kelly added, and for the same reason. Tyrosh turned to Zalman. Did they wound him at all? Not from what I could see, but Eric and I didn't have a chance to hit him with repeated rounds. It wouldn't have made any difference, Kelly said. Zalman turned on her. Who asked you to? Nevertheless, Tyrosh cut him off. We must recover the tranquilizer gun as soon as possible. Wasn't it destroyed when Kaznan was attacked? Troy asked. No, Gregor dropped the gun somewhere inside the cage. Then the T-Rex probably trampled on it afterwards. Not necessarily. It should still be there inside the storage depot somewhere. And it still remains, without doubt, our last best hope for recapturing the beast. Someone must return to the storage depot and recover it. That is probably the stupidest idea I've ever heard yet, Kelly said. Not to mention the most dangerous. There's risk in any course of action, Miss Sawyer. Well, we're talking about a 16,000-pound carnivore. He needs to eat a lot, assuming that he's surviving at all in this cold environment. He needs to eat even more. There's not much food in Antarctica for an animal his size. The seals, not for long. He'll go after any seal he sees in the coastal areas, but seals aren't dumb. After the first massacre, they'll swim away. The Tyrannosaur can swim too, and he probably won't want not to be in freezing water. So what does he eat next? Penguins? A few, maybe, before they swim away. An unlucky albatross or two. But we're talking snacks for an animal that size. When he gets really hungry, he'll come back to scavenge off dead bodies lying outside the storage depot, and any live ones stupid enough to be poking around inside. An uncomfortable silence settled over the table as they all thought of the half-eaten bodies outside, unburied and slowly freezing salad in the dim Antarctic twilight. He may come back to the storage depot anyway, Kelly continued, even if he's not hungry for protection from the cold. Also, the depot is where he was hatched and raised. I'm sure it has all sorts of traumatic associations for him now, but it's still his home. We can't avoid all possible risks, Miss Sawyer, but the chance of recovering the tranquilizer gun makes running them extremely worthwhile. Why? Because with the tranquilizer gun, we can capture him. No, Kelly said. I don't mean that. You're the one who lost him. Why is it so important to you to get him back? I don't have to explain my reasons, Miss Sawyer. Is it just a money thing? Sudden anger flashed in Tyrosh's eyes. unlike anything she had seen before. And then, just as suddenly, it was gone, fading like an echo of a gunshot. Every valuable object carries a price tag, Miss Sawyer. We have already invested a great deal of time and money in this project. It would prove a very poor investment if we were to abandon it now, while recovery is still possible. The only thing is, Troy said, who's crazy enough to go out there and get the tranquilizer gun? Interesting that you should put it that way, Troy, when I was just thinking how you might be the perfect man for the job. Forget it, Tarosh. Count me out. Consider it an order, Troy. What happens if I refuse? Do I get shot like Burke? If you leave me no choice. Then go ahead and get your gun out. I'd rather be killed by a bullet than eaten alive by a T-Rex. Think carefully, Troy. Tough talk is cheap. There's someone here at this table right now who would be happy to kill you if I just gave him the word. Zalman, in anticipation of the word, began to reach inside his coat for the Makarov. Not yet, horse. Tarosh turned back to Troy, smiling with his mouth only. If you force my hand, I will give the word, just to provide an example for the others sitting here with us. Zalman waited patiently, his hand on the Makarov. Troy let out a deep breath. Who goes with me? You may select your own men, subject to my approval. You're wasting your time, Tarosh, Kelly said. Thank you for your insight, Miss Sawyer, but I think we've heard enough from you for one evening. You don't have to go looking for the tranquilizer gun or the Tyrannosaur. Just wait around. Sooner or later, he'll come back looking for us. What are you trying to say, Miss Sawyer? He's a predator, Tarosh, genetically programmed to hunt down his food. He's not going to scavenge from a bunch of half-eaten corpses, not when he has a whole base camp full of live, slow-moving mammals here to feed on. Don't be absurd. There's no way he could possibly breach these walls or attack us inside these buildings. Just like there was no way he could escape from the cage? Tarosh did not have an answer for that. The end of chapter 8.